Alright everyone, welcome back to another review, and this time we're going to be covering Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, and oh boy, I don't like this one at all. This is where this series goes down a downward spiral all the way into the abyss. Okay, so Dream Child continues what I like to call the Dream Trilogy of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. This is a continuation of the awesomeness that was Dream Master. We have Alice, who's back, and she's now in a full-fledged relationship with Dan. And the whole plot line of this movie is Alice is pregnant with child, and Freddy wants to use her baby for reasons. It's very confusing in how they explain it in the movie. According to the Never Sleep Again documentary, the writer explains it as Freddy's using these souls to, get power and use the baby as like a avatar or something stupid or other. This movie sucks. I hate it. I don't like it at all. I hate it as much as I hate number 2. It's got some stuff that I like, but the rest of this movie is just so stupid. The whole concept of Freddy and a baby is so stupid as all hell. Alright. Things I do like, though. This movie is directed by Stephen Hopkins. I like Stephen Hopkins. I like Predator 2, which is what he directed. I like his visual style. And I think he gets a bad rap for this movie, because I do think visually it does look pretty good. He gives it a good, European gothicness to it. I like that. To me, he makes it feel almost comic book-like, because Stephen Hopkins is heavily influenced by comic books in general, so this movie has like a little bit of a comic book feel to it, especially since one of the characters named Mark happens to be a comic book, buff character type. So I can appreciate that aesthetic. As someone who likes superhero movies and likes comic books, I can appreciate having that kind of aesthetic and this kind of movie like that. And I think it's overall well done for the most part. Like I said, the production design looks good. Some of the sets look pretty good. In terms of death scenes, not too many, but there's only 2 that stand out and 2 that I actually really like. The first one being Dan. I love Dan's demise in this movie, and I like how Freddy turns him into like this Mad Max inspired character while he's riding a motorcycle. And then he often gets into and Freddy calls him to get into a car accident which kills him. So I thought that whole Dan stuff is pretty cool. And I also like the fan favorite of this thing, of course, is the Mark death, because it's so over the top and so campy, and it's a direct parody of comic books that I can't hate on it. I really can't hate on it. And a movie that sucks, it's one of the very few redeeming qualities that this movie has, is the Mark death, where like Mark transforms himself into this thing called the Phantom Prowler, which is a comic book character he created, and Freddy kills him by becoming a Superman parody called Super Freddy. It's called Super Freddy, and that whole scene is fun to watch. I like Lisa Wilcox as Alice, though in certain scenes I found her to be annoying, but as it progressed she became likable again. I also the character, her friend Yvonne, she's okay too. She's not bad. She doesn't really a whole lot to do. To me, the character Yvonne, I think people give that character a little too much credit, because to me she comes across as a fucking annoying bitch. But near the end of the movie, she actually starts to get her head out of her ass and actually starts to help Alice. So she kind of redeems herself. And like I said, I do like the character of Mark, because as someone who is into the comic book stuff, I can appreciate a character like that. It's almost like a reflection of myself in a way. And of course, I like Dan in Nightmare 4, and I also like Dan in this movie. Especially to me in this movie, he's a little bit more mature, more weathered, and I also like the fact that he and Alice, had a continuing relationship, so I'm okay with that stuff. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. Let's get to the negatives, and there's a lot. Now, this movie is full of characters that I don't care for at all. There's this character of Greta, who is just stock, annoying, and it is clearly there to die. She means nothing to the plot, nothing to this movie. You could have written her out and it wouldn't have made a big difference. She's useless. The whole story itself is confusing, and it's muddled, and it's just stupid. I am not a fan of it at all. I'm watching a Freddy movie. I want to see innovative kills and innovative dreamscapes. I don't want to watch a movie that's talking about teen pregnancy, abortions, and is being very heavy-handed with it, especially in one scene where Dan's parents are like trying to take Alice's baby away because they want to have her committed for being insane. I don't need to see this. I don't want to see this in my nightmare movie. No. I want to see Freddy, hack and slash and like cut some jokes. Now listen, Robert Englund as Freddy is always good. In this movie, you can tell he was not feeling it, and you know what? It's hard to see why. It's hard to see why he was not. It's hard to see why not, because this movie doesn't really have him do much. This is Freddy going more into that, that wisecracker, doesn't have a whole lot, nothing to do. He's too busy cutting these cheesy jokes. There's actually two of them that I actually do like, and they both involve him, in disguise as Dan. Like when Dan dies and Alice sees Dan's dead body, Dan just pops up and is like, "Hey Alice, want to make babies?" Because the baby that Alice is trying to save is the child of her and Dan. And there's another line near the end of the movie where Freddy's trying to like bring Jacob, the child of Dan and Alice, to his side, and he's like, "Kids always a disappointment." I do like all this stuff, and I also like that little Superman parody he did to Mark. But aside from those three things, Freddy doesn't say much that's memorable. He doesn't do much that's any good. The makeup, the makeup for his face looks ugly. It looks like rubber. It doesn't look innovative or as cool as it did in the previous movies. It just looks. You can clearly tell that Robert Englund just looks really tired by this point, and he's just going through the motions, which is a damn shame. A really damn shame. But it's also sad because Robert Englund's going through the motions, and he's outshining almost everyone else in this cast. On his bad day, Robert Englund can still outshine anyone. That's just a credit to just how talented he is as an actor, and for that, all the praise in the world. Robert Englund is always will be one of my favorite horror actors. He's amazing. And Freddy's resurrection is confusing. I didn't get it. Alice has this dream where she sees Freddy's mom, who was a nun, and she watches her, pop out Freddy, and this weird looking Freddy baby puppet goes into Freddy's clothes from like Nightmare 4 and resurrects himself, and I'm all confused, and Freddy's death at the end is all confusing. He gets barfed on pretty much. So, Nightmare 2, he's killed by the power of love. Nightmare 3, he's killed by the power of God. Nightmare 4, he's killed by his own reflection. Nightmare 5, he's puked on. What a way to go out with dignity. So yeah, I got nothing left to say about this movie. This movie is a 4 out of 10. The same grade I'm giving Nightmare 2. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10 because I like Alice, I like Dan. For the most part, I like Yvonne. I like the character of Mark. I like those two death scenes I like. And those three one-liners that Freddy has as I like. And I like Stephen Hopkins as a visual artist. The rest of this movie is garbage. It's just stupid as all hell. 4 out of 10 is being way too generous for it. I'm AJ Legend. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.